When my boss threw milk on the janitor, her unbelievable act of kindness left us all speechless. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other dreary Thursday, with the air thick and heavy, coated in the mundane scent of stale coffee and old paperwork. My heart sank at the thought of another long shift in that fluorescent-lit dungeon we called an office. I glanced over at Frank, the janitor, pushing his cart down the aisle, the wheels squeaking like a broken record. He's been here forever, but no one ever really saw him. Just a ghost sweeping up the remnants of our busy lives. Then, it happened. There was a sudden burst of laughter from the conference room. We all glanced towards the sound, curiosity igniting in our chests. In that moment, our boss, a woman who always appeared so polished, so impenetrable, emerged. She was holding a carton of milk, a comically large one. Her face was twisted in a laugh that almost looked manic. We all thought it was a joke. But then, in a heartbeat, she turned on Frank, aiming that carton like it was a weapon. The milk flew in a white arc, splattering across his uniform. The coldness seeped through the fabric, turning the bitter laughter in the room into stunned silence. Frank froze, his eyes wide with confusion, holding his mop like it was a life raft in the middle of a storm. I could feel my heart pounding louder than my own breath. This wasn't just a public humiliation, it was a moment that hit harder than any corporate meeting. The liquid shone under the fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to Frank's weathered skin, and the sound of the carton hitting the floor echoed like a gunshot. But then, something shifted. In that heart-stopping silence, I noticed a spark in her eyes. It was a spark of something deeper, more profound. Was it compassion? Regret? As she looked at him, the laughter faded, leaving behind a raw vulnerability. The weight of our collective shock pressed down on us. People began to murmur. Someone whispered, "What is wrong with her?" While another said, "That's just cruel." But I could see it in her eyes, she was struggling with something more than just her decision in that moment. Frank, still stunned, lifted his trembling hand to wipe the milk from his face. Our eyes locked, and for the first time, I saw the depths of his sorrow. It wasn't just the humiliation of being drenched in milk, it was years of being unseen, overlooked. The room felt like it was closing in, the tension thick enough to cut through. Would he scream? Would he cry? We waited, our breaths held tight in our throats. I can still hear the heartbeat of that moment, echoing in my mind. Then, the tension shattered as Frank broke into a laugh, a deep, hearty laugh that seemed to surprise even him. I felt warmth bloom in my chest, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong beneath the surface. I wanted to yell out, to ask why she'd done it, to push everyone to see what I was seeing. But I was frozen, caught in the web of uncertainty and shock. Was this some bizarre act of rebellion? Or was it a desperate plea for connection? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days following that surreal moment stitched a pattern of unease across the office. Each morning, as I entered the fluorescent-lit tomb, I felt an undeniable weight pressing down. The unspoken questions hung in the air like an unresolved chord. Frank returned to his routine, soaking in the gossip and glances like rain, his smile still tucked into the corners of his mouth, but even that wasn't enough to mask the hurt. The once ordinary jabs and quips from coworkers became sharper, each one bearing the weight of the previous incident. I caught whispers on breaks, conversations halting when I entered the room. Did you see the look on his face? Someone would chuckle, but their laughter lacked warmth. It was laughter born of discomfort, not camaraderie. The dichotomy of sympathy and scorn twirled around the office like an uninvited guest. Then one Tuesday, as I filled my mug with the bitter brew from the coffee machine, a small ray of humanity fell against the turmoil. It was Rita, the receptionist, known for her sweet nature. She always wore her heart on her sleeve, and that day, she approached Frank with 2 steaming cups. I watched as she handed him one, her eyes filled with genuine warmth. "Here," she said softly, "I thought you could use this." The tension seemed to ripple in her wake, people leaned in to witness this small gesture. And in that moment, I felt a stir of hope. Frank accepted the cup, and for a fleeting second, his guarded expression softened. I saw the faintest smile emerge, igniting a spark in his eyes that had dimmed since that chaotic event, but the undercurrent of unease lingered. The months passed, and yet, no one dared talk about what happened. I rarely heard my boss' laughter anymore. She moved through the office like a specter, carrying the weight of her actions cloaked around her shoulders. I noticed her sitting in her office, the door ajar, her head hung low, as if scrubbing away memories that wouldn't fade. It gnawed at me, this unspoken grief that coexisted alongside the embarrassment left in the aftermath of that day. Then came another Thursday, when I stumbled upon Frank quietly cleaning the break room, his dedication almost spirit-like. The rest of us slipped into the routine of work, heads down, but I stood watching him, feeling the injustice tugging at me until I couldn't remain still. I approached him hesitantly. "Hey Frank," I began, unsure of the words coursing through my veins, "are you okay?" He looked up, surprise mingling with the dust motes flickering in the afternoon light. "Yeah, just fine." But beneath the surface of his voice, I heard echoes of sadness, and it broke my heart to realize how much his okay disguised that "I know the way they look at you," the whispers. I fumbled with my words, feeling embarrassment creep up my neck. "It's not fair. You deserve better." Frank's gaze steadied as he set aside his mop. "I appreciate it." His tone was soft, and a weight lifted for a brief moment, but it also dimmed as he continued, "But it's the world we live in. People can't help but judge." Before I could respond, the office door swung open, and in stepped my boss, her expression a mixture of determination and trepidation. She stood there for a heartbeat, as if the very air crackled with a palpable tension. "Frank," she said, her voice breaking the stillness, "I need to talk to you." I felt my pulse quicken. What could she possibly want? The realization hit me, she had taken a step, alone, towards an emotional confrontation that could echo their last disastrous encounter. Frank's expression shifted to a wary confusion. What's this about?" His defensiveness returned, and I saw fear bloom in his eyes. "It's about the milk," she continued, each word dripping with dormant emotions. "I'm so sorry for what happened," and just like that, the universe shifted again, a collision of pain and longing, raw and vulnerable. I could hardly breathe, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. What could possibly unfold now? Would she reveal the storm brewing under that polished exterior, confront the depths of her actions, or simply retread trails of vanity tinged with regret? But then, just as the room began to crack open a glimmer of possibility, I noticed something peculiar out of the corner of my eye. It was Benjamin from accounting, an unassuming figure who usually floated through the office without a second glance. He was lurking, his demeanor sharp yet pained, clutching something under his arm. I watched, frozen as he turned, revealing a piece of paper stained with words I couldn't decipher, but the expression on his face told me it was serious. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifted once more. Everyone could feel a tide of change rising, threatening to pull us all under. I held my breath, my heart racing, uncertain of what revelation or dread awaited us as the day spun on the axis of unyielding tension. The day stretched on like a taut wire, vibrating with the promise of an unspeakable truth. My heart thrummed in my chest, a rapid beat that echoed the palpable tension amongst us. While my boss stood frozen, words brimming on her lips, I felt the gravity of the moment pulling us all unwillingly toward its center. That I shifted my gaze to Benjamin, who now cleared his throat, his pallor washed with anxious determination. The office was dead silent, each breath held captive. "I think you all should see this," he finally managed, his voice low yet resonant with urgency. He unveiled the paper he'd been clutching, a hastily printed flyer, its bold letters claiming a plan for a staff reconciliation meeting. The words danced mockingly across the page, a chance to mend fences and heal our workplace with open dialogue. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. The tenacity it took for something that seemed almost mockingly optimistic in this fractured environment hung like a thin veil over our collective confusion. From the corner of my eye, I saw Frank's expression shift to one of guarded curiosity. He had resumed his place by the well-worn dishwasher, his back to us, yet I sensed the inner turmoil roiling just beneath his calm exterior. "Okay, and?" Rita contradicted, stepping forward. "Are we supposed to just forgive and forget?" Her voice was loose with the swell of hidden wounds, each word heavy with resentment. "It's more than that, Rita," Benjamin replied, his voice unwavering beneath the waves of discontent. "This isn't only about fixing what happened to Frank. It's about moving past everything that divides us. We can't keep living in this chaos. The word hung heavily as my thoughts swirled. I caught the flicker of uncertainty on my boss's face, ever a professional, but torn apart by the very mess she helped create. It was clear she sought redemption yet remained terrified of the consequences she might face in the process. "That I didn't mean to humiliate you," she finally said, her voice breaking the silence like a whisper of wind through shattered glass. "I was just frustrated." It spiraled out of control. Being a boss means it's easy to forget the human side of this. The apology rested there, raw and vulnerable, quivering in the air. Frank turned, crossing his arms, guarded and athletic, yet weary beneath the burden of continuous scrutiny. "You didn't just forget that day, did you?" came his reply, every word laced with an echo of resentment and sorrow. "No," she replied, lowering her eyes. "I see it every time I walk through this office, every time I meet your gaze." Suddenly Benjamin interjected, desperation etching deeper lines on his forehead. "This isn't about just the milk. Not anymore. It's about all of us. Please." A hesitant flicker ignited within me, a small but palpable piece of hope that stirred as I witnessed this unexpected exchange. Perhaps Benjamin was right. Perhaps there was a way out of this tangled web we had all unwittingly created together. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, the room seemed to tighten around us, the atmosphere shifting sharply as the door swung open again, this time revealing agency's HR representative, Claire, standing tentatively in the portal. She had an air of authority that felt both calming and alarming. In her hand, she held not a file of corporate papers, but a snapshot that glimmered with emotion. "That I need everyone's attention," she began, her voice steady yet solemn. "This was brought to my attention because of the unfortunate way that particular incident unfolded. An anonymous source felt you all deserved to see this." She held the photo aloft, tilting it so the light caught the surface just right. That it was an image of Frank, a split second captured in time, a glimpse into the heart of a genuine moment, happier. He was laughing, his delight innocent and pure, arms stretched wide on what looked strikingly like a family picnic, surrounded by smiling faces that lit up the frame. The picture felt heavy over us, the laughter captured a stark contrast to our current reality. "This, while it is just a photograph and it may have been taken a long time ago," Claire continued, her voice heavy with compassion, "shows the man you are. And more importantly, it demonstrates how deep our bonds can run when we let our fear wash away." A cacophony of silence swallowed the office, each occupied soul processing the raw vulnerability laid bare before us. In that instant, Frank's demeanor shifted yet again, the weight in his shoulders seemed to lift, if only slightly, as he took a shaky breath. "Do you think any of this matters?" he finally exclaimed, his voice raw with emotion. "This photo won't change the way you all see me now." Claire's eyes softened, and her expression turned earnest. "It matters because it proves that we're not defined by one moment of failure or humiliation but by every moment of laughter that stitches us together." The tension in the room throbbed, a swirling maelstrom of confusion and uncertainty mingled with the threads of something undeniably hopeful. But just as hope began to flicker, another thought tugged my heart. What if someone, perhaps one of our own, had taken that photo in the first place? What if they had meant to capture it and send it out, further complicating an already tangled situation? An unexpected twist surged through my veins, filling me with unease. If there were still shadows lurking, who else was waiting in the wings with something to reveal? What else could the day unearth? I had to know. Before the moment spiraled into chaos again, I felt the urge to uncover this bitter thread woven among our tightly bound fates. I took a step forward, my instincts roaring louder than the confusion. "Who sent this?" I whispered, knowing full well the answer might shatter even that flicker of hope we'd began to stitch together. The air thickened as my question lingered, a fragile thread weaving through the echoing silence. Everyone's eyes darted around uncertainly as they sought refuge in familiar faces. The moment teetered between hope and dread. Claire's quiet strength seemed to falter for a split second, her gaze flickering to the floor, then back to the gathered group, as though she were weighing the cost of honesty against the need for peace. An anonymous source, she reiterated, her voice steady but tinged with an undertone I couldn't quite place. "Whoever sent this wanted to support you, Frank. They believed you deserved to be remembered as more than just a moment on the office floor." Frank's expression tightened with a blend of curiosity and wariness. "But why bring it out now? Why the picture?" He shifted uncomfortably, the battle between his desire to be recognized and his fear of being heard again gnawing at him. There was again the deep well of vulnerability beneath the surface of his bravado. The room featured an invisible seesaw, swaying between compassion and the perils of resurfaced pain. I could feel the gravity of everyone's thoughts colliding, swirling, as we all sensed the stakes escalating, and yet, amidst the uncertainty loomed a strange surge of courage. Benjamin, perhaps emboldened by the collective weight of the moment, stepped forward. "It could be anyone," he murmured, searching for solidarity. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is how we act on this shared glimpse of what could once again be." As he spoke, I could see the candle of hope flickering brighter within him. Yet within those shimmering shadows arose a nagging fear, a sense that the further we delved into this tangled history, the more complicated our relationships would become. Rita finally cut through the thickening haze, her voice rising slightly, tinged with a sudden flame of indignation. "How do we even know that this wasn't meant to humiliate Frank again? That whoever sent it didn't have ulterior motives?" The question echoed, bouncing off the walls like a pinball, reaffirming the suspicions that danced behind weary eyes. "Maybe it's time we stop looking for ulterior motives and start contemplating acts of kindness instead," Claire interjected firmly, her voice unwavering. "Trust has been wounded, but it won't be healed by hiding behind accusations." Her words reverberated with such raw honesty that I feared the flicker of hope we'd grasped might be snuffed out altogether. Yet there it was, lurking tantalizingly close, a notion of redemption lingering beneath layers of hurt. Taking a deep breath, I ventured another step forward. "If we can acknowledge how we've hurt each other, maybe we can begin to heal. But we need transparency," I implored, my voice a blend of vulnerability and determination, my heartbeat echoing in the pregnant quiet around us. "Honesty among the pain might just lift us." In that vulnerable moment, unexpected eyes turned towards Frank, waiting for his cue, his verdict on our fragile proposition. With furrowed brows, he appeared both receptive and defensive, a battlefield of emotions racing across his features. "I appreciate that you all are trying," he finally said, his voice hoarse, filled with an agony that hinted at past battles. "But trust is a currency I can't afford right now. Why should I believe any of this will change?" A heavy silence enveloped us then, the moment hung like a fragile ornament on the tree of our collective trauma. Just then, the office phone blared to life, shattering the delicate tension like a glass window shuddering from a rogue breeze. The sharp ring punctuated the silence, reverberating through our chests. "Whose phone is that?" Claire snapped, her composure almost fraying as she looked around the room. I could see the frown deepening on her forehead, shadows of doubt dancing across her universal authority. "Not mine," Frank said, shaking his head, but as the echoes of its shrill tone continued, I felt an overwhelming urge to pick it up. The curiosity sent a jolt through my veins. What if it held answers? What if it bore news that could either splinter us further or stitch us together? Without thinking, I reached for the phone, clasping it between my trembling fingers, my heart pounding in the waning chaos surrounding me. And yet, as I pressed the receiver to my ear, dread settled in my gut. What if I lost the bit of hope we had painstakingly begun to nurture? "Hello," I said tentatively, the single word hanging heavily in the air, the jagged edges of our collective past still cutting into the present tension. The voice on the other end was a revelation, electric and shocking. I know about the photo and I have more to share. My breath caught in my throat as a chilling realization washed over me. The smiley faces, the echoes of laughter, they were more than fleeting snapshots, they were pieces of a narrative I may have inadvertently opened to a much darker chapter. In that moment hung a million questions. Who was this person? What did they know? And most importantly, what piece of truth lay behind their intention? The possibilities spun around me like flurries of autumn leaves, darkening the tenuous threads of hope we had begun to spin. As Claire turned her back to the group, her breath quickening, I could see the threads of tension weave tighter around us. They shimmered, fragile and reluctantly binding, as each acknowledgement of our past felt like a double-edged sword. The voice on the other end of the line dripped with some sinister gravity, a gravity that I could no longer ignore. Who is this? I managed, my voice steadying, yet the echo of my heartbeat was a drumroll of impending dread. I caught a glimpse of Frank's eyes, filled with confusion, an ocean of past hurt surging beneath the surface, someone who knows the truth about the picture and the events that led to its creation. The voice continued, unwavering in its certainty. You shouldn't ignore this. There are layers to this story that you are only beginning to unveil. I'll meet you, but only one person. An unsettling thrill shot through me, the call a current of electricity igniting my senses. Beneath the chilling anticipation, however, a small voice whispered a warning, reminding me of the stakes. I had to choose wisely. Lives were tangled in this mystery, not just my own, but those of my colleagues who hung on the fringes of hope and despair. Please, wait. I called out, desperation coloring my words. You can't drop this and expect me to walk away with half-truths. We need clarity. Clarity is something this office has been running from. Meet me at Flanagan's at 8. That is where this story truly begins. Before I could ask further, the line went dead. I stood there in a stunned silence, a stone in a rushing river of emotions cascading around me. Frank broke my reverie, his expression a mask of turmoil. What was that? He asked, the thread of vulnerability woven into his tone making my heart ache. His searching gaze seemed to await both answers and misgivings, a contradiction that mirrored our lives interlaced together. Someone who claims they know more about the photo and everything surrounding it, I explained, trying to frame my words into something coherent, careful not to drown him in the storm brewing inside me. Claire turned back, her brow knitted in concern. What did they say? That's not the kind of call you want to leave hanging, not now. It could set us further back. Flanagan's at 8, I replied, the unspoken fear nestled in my gut. The weight of their presence felt too heavy a wish to brood over, but a solid call to action started to form in my heart. They want only one person to meet them. I don't know if I should go. Go, Claire insisted, her voice emerging spring-like from the emotional winter that had encased us. We need to extract every thread of truth we can. If that person has something crucial, we can't afford to dismiss it. But it must be someone who can handle whatever revelations may lie ahead, she added, throwing a swift glance at Frank. No, he interjected, his voice rising, flame igniting from a diminished spark. You shouldn't be putting yourself out there like that. We don't know what kind of game they are playing or their intentions. What if it's all a misunderstanding? Rita chimed in, her tone wobbly yet furling an undertone of resolve. It could be someone who wants better for us. Or worse, my mind quipped back, churning with potential scenarios of betrayal swirling through the room like a restless wind that I swallowed hard, feeling the buildup of anticipation and fear entwining like vine and tree. What if they want to help us move forward? Or if they want to expose something much darker lurking in our past? Then if you are going to do this, you should never go alone, Claire stated firmly, her expression unwavering. She seemed to draw strength from somewhere deep within her, her reluctance fading into resolve. You need backup. We can't let fear keep us docile, we need to break this cycle. The sparks of hope, rekindled through vulnerability, began to illuminate our way amidst the shadows. Each of us shared glances, the storm of doubt softening. If just for a moment, I'll go with you, Benjamin offered, stepping forward, his face a reflection of determination etched in the soft lines of his features. You shouldn't be the only one facing whatever awaits us. Closer, we edged to each other, drawn together like moths to a flickering flame. But as we rallied behind this new objective, a sudden thought struck me. What if the meeting dismantled all we held together? What if the truth was even darker than our fears? The clock ticked relentlessly forward, each second echoing in my chest like a drum. Time teased us, questions spiraled, and clarity remained elusive. Suddenly, the office door creaked open, the light from the hallway pouring in like a spotlight illuminating the very fabric of our gathering self-doubt. A familiar figure appeared, Mary, the HR manager, her face pale and worn. "I need to talk to all of you," she breathed, each word holding an urgency that stilled the heavy air. "It's about the photo and Frank." My heart plummeted as I felt the heavy weight of curiosity perched on the edge of uncertainty. Was this the moment we had been bracing for, or a prelude to another twist of fate that would shatter our fraying connections? As the light from the hallway enveloped Mary, her pallor highlighted the jagged lines of worry etched into her face. A silent tension spread through the room, and though we were already precariously perched on the edge of revelation, her presence seemed to promise either a glimmer of hope or a plunge into darker depths. "What do you have to tell us?" I managed to ask, my voice wavering with a mix of urgency and dread. The conversation about the impending meeting at Flanagan's became a mere whisper against the clamor already brewing in my Mindan, emerging storm ready to unleash its fury. Mary stepped inside, casting cautious glances around at each one of us, as if determining the right moment to drop the weight she carried. "I know the picture we're all so anxious about," she began, her voice low but steady, reverberating with a kind of fragile strength. "And I've heard things." Frank took a step closer, his brows knitting together with tightly coiled frustration. "Heard things? Why now? You've kept us in the dark this whole time," he snapped, but Mary's eyes remained captured by a turmoil of her own, unyielding yet softened by something else: fear, reflection, perhaps even regret. "Because I thought I could protect you," she replied sharply, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't realize the danger that the truth could pose until now." My heart raced with anticipation as she continued. "There's someone involved, someone who was there the night of the photo. I've avoided bringing it up because I thought." She paused, glancing at Frank, then back at all of us. "I thought what I had was only gossip. But I overheard a conversation in the break room about it, a conversation that has layers to it that you cannot ignore." "What conversation?" I pressed, my curiosity igniting a flicker of hope, a longing for understanding that had been stifled too long. The truth hovered just beyond our reach, like a ghost teasing us from the shadows. "There's a rumor about the janitor, Thomas," she whispered, each word laced with urgency and care. "I heard someone mention he was there the night the picture was taken. They said he knows something about Ida's secret that could unravel everything." Frank's eyes widened, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue overlaying confusion. "The janitor? How could he know anything?" "He's just a witness," Mary interrupted, her voice a wave crashing against the shore of doubt. "He kept to himself, but he's observant. I didn't think anything of it until just yesterday when I spotted him speaking to someone outside the building. It didn't sit right with me." There was fear written across his face, that a silent beat of disbelief and realization held the air around us. It was a thread, delicate yet unbreakable, leading us to the heart of unanswered questions. "We need to find him," I said, my resolve crystallizing. "If Thomas knows the truth, if he was a witness and could shed light on everything, it could clear the shadow that looms over us." "But he avoids us for a reason," Claire cautioned, her voice fraying at the edges. "If he's involved in something more sinister, we have to tread carefully. We can't put Heimer ourselves in danger." In the midst of our gathering storm, a sense of urgency began to merge with a layer of purpose. I looked around the room, at the faces of my colleagues who had become comrades in this emotional battle, each of us tethered not merely by our past, but by the hope of unshackling the truth for good. "What if we pool our resources?" Benjamin suggested, the flicker of resolve barely glowing behind his eyes. "We could track him down, perhaps even talk to him in a non-threatening way." But as the plan formed, rippling through the air like a delicate thread tethered to hope, Mary's phone beeped, cutting through our urgency. She pulled it from her pocket, her expression shifting rapidly from concern to sheer panic. "Oh God," she breathed, her complexion paling even further. "It's a message from the mysterious number I gave you earlier." They know we're looking for Thomas. What does it say? Frank said, his tone growing laced with anxiety. Mary stared at her phone, her mouth parting in disbelief. If I don't want him to suffer the consequences, I need to stop digging, she murmured, her face paling further, as if the words had physically struck her. The room went dead silent, the air thick with the weight of foreboding. The fragile threads of hope we had begun weaving just moments ago began to fray, unraveling into uncharted waters. Mary, no, I interjected, the grip of fear seizing my heart. You can't just walk away. We have to confront this. We have to help him help all of us. But then Mary's eyes glazed, and I realized with absolute clarity that her gaze wasn't fixed on us anymore. It was focused somewhere just beyond the doorway. Among the tensions rising, a new presence loomed. Shadowy and ethereal, it was shaping into the figure we least expected, a tall silhouette stepping through the office door with an air of ominous familiarity. Looking for me? A voice rumbled, smooth yet chilling, sending cold prickles dancing down my spine. It was Thomas, and he looked worn yet defiant, the weight of understanding hanging heavy in the air along with the burden of truth. As I stood there, heart racing, the realization dawned, the echoes of our past were finally catching up to us, and the confrontation we had so fearfully anticipated was about to unfold. Thomas stepped fully into the room, the fluorescent lights casting a stark glow over his face. The tension that coiled tightly among us snapped. We were all jolted out of our spiraling thoughts, caught between the echo of Mary's panicked revelation and the undeniable presence of the man we had only spoken about in shadows. Thomas, I managed to whisper, the simplicity of his name almost grounding amidst the storm swirling in my chest. We wanted to talk to you. We need to understand, but his expression both grave and guarded left little room for pleasantries. You shouldn't be looking for me. His voice was a low rumble, edged with fatigue and a layer of guarded menace that made even Frank's bravado shrink back slightly. That I took a cautious step forward. We know something happened, and we believe you were a witness to it. Please, if you know anything. He cut me off with a raised hand, the dark circles under his eyes deepening as he shook his head. You don't understand. What I know can't help you. It will only pull you deeper into troubles that are too big. Troubles? Frank echoed, anger flickering within him. How can you say that? Don't you care about what happened? The intensity in Thomas's eyes flared for an instant, and then his shoulders seemed to hunch, the exhaustion visibly pressed against his frame. Trust me, kid. The truth doesn't liberate, it chains you to it. Mary stepped forward, urgency and empathy blending in her voice. We don't want to chain ourselves to despair. We want to understand. If thereafter a brief spark of light flickered through Thomas's gaze when he looked at Mary. They've been watching. I don't know how long, but it feels like forever. One misstep, one wrong word, and he hesitated, a shudder traversing his body. The truth you seek isn't just a harmless revelation. There are consequences. That I glanced at my teammates, a silent consensus stretched between us. We couldn't let fear snuff out the flicker of hope. But you have to tell us, I insisted. What really happened? What do they want? Thomas' lips pressed into a thin line, his jaw twitching with the weight of unspoken burdens. Just as he opened his mouth to finally share something, Mary's phone buzzed again, the shrill sound slicing through the atmosphere with a sharpness that felt almost malevolent. Not now, she mouthed, but the eerie glow of the screen reflected the tension that had undoubtedly spilled over into that moment. Her fingers hesitated, but curiosity compelled her to glance at the message. Your past choices won't go unnoticed, she read in a whisper, her voice quaking under the weight of the ominous words. This is your final warning. Her face paled, and I felt the chill of dread slip under my skin. Who sent this? I exclaimed, spinning back to Thomas, who wore an expression of revelation. It's just the beginning, he muttered under his breath, casting concerned eyes towards Mary, who looked more fragile than ever. These are the shadows I spoke of. It's what I tried to warn you about. They will stop at nothing. As the weight of truth teetered on the edge of revelation, a flicker of resolve ignited within me once more. No, I breathed, clutching the edge of the countertop. We need to confront this together. We can't let them intimidate us like this. We can protect each other." There was a long pause as all eyes turned to Thomas, his turmoil laid bare. I half expected him to decline, to flee back into the safety of his silence. Instead, something shifted within him, a ghost of recognition passing across his features. "I've spent too long hiding," he ultimately said, the defiance rising within him like a phoenix. "If there's strength in numbers, then maybe I can find the will to step back into the light. But you all need to understand the truth. Well, uncover will come with cost." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, a small glimmer of camaraderie igniting in the darkness. A bend of fate drawing us into the heart of the maelstrom. Just as we began to strategize possibilities, the door swung open once again. A young woman stepped inside, a stranger but with a familiar air, and my heart slammed into my ribs when I saw her face. "Thomas?" she called, concern etched deeply in her brow. "I've been looking for you. You need to come with me now." The urgency in her voice contracted my chest, and there was something hauntingly reminiscent in her presence. Thomas recoiled, recognition and fear flashing across his features. "Lily?" His voice quivered, and the tension was palpable. None of us understood the depths of this new revelation. "Please," Lily urged, stepping forward with trembling hands. "It's not safe here. They know you're here. We need to leave now," and with that, the threads of our gathering storm twisted tighter. There we stood, caught between the revelations that had begun to unfold and the unknown shadows that loomed ever closer, threatening to swallow us whole. The path toward truth was no longer just a choice, it had become an insistent calling, with uncertainty gripping at our heels, eager to drag us back into the darkness. The tension in the room crackled like a living thing, intensified by the sudden arrival of Lily. My thoughts raced as I tried to process the implications of this unexpected reunion. Her presence transformed Thomas from a man steeped in shadows to someone who bore an unmistakable weight of history. Confusion swirled within me, twisting alongside a willingness to dive into the depths of this new revelation, whatever it might bring. "What do you mean, it's not safe?" Thomas asked, his earlier bravado crumbling like a flake of ash in the wind. I caught his eye, seeking some form of reassurance amidst the growing panic, but only found the deepening lines on his face reflecting years of worry. "Just trust me," Lily insisted, her grip tightening on Thomas' arm. "We can talk later, but right now, we need to move. They're getting closer, and I can't let you get caught in this." Mary's eyes shifted between the two, and I could feel the uncertainty gripping her heart. "Who are they?" she finally breathed, breaking the momentary silence. "Why are they after you?" Lily took a deep breath, her features tense as she began to piece together the danger we were standing in. "I can't explain it all here, it's too risky. But something happened, a major disruption. We crossed a line, and now there are people looking to tie up loose ends." The words slithered through the air like smoke, evoking a foreboding sensation that seeped into my bones. "Thomas, what did you get yourself into?" I asked, disbelief clawing at the edges of my consciousness. "2 didn't think it would matter." His voice trembled. "We just wanted answers, something concrete to hold on to." "Our curiosity has put us in the line of fire," I interjected, frustrated but equally aware of our collective naivety. Lily interrupted, urgency bleeding into her tone. "The clock's ticking. You're in danger, but I know a way out. I promise I'll explain everything, but right now, we need to focus on getting away." Thomas hesitated, a storm of choices raging in his eyes. "But what about them? If we leave, they will come after us. They'll find out. That's exactly why we can't stay." Lily looked at him with a mix of determination and desperation, and I found myself captivated by the bond they shared, a connection that transcended fear. "You're not alone anymore. You're not running from this on your own." Frank stepped forward, a note of panic creeping into his voice. "You want to go with her? We don't know if we can trust her." "Trust? What exactly has it brought us so far?" Thomas shot back, pointedly looking at Frank. "We need to move now." As if to punctuate his urgency, the faint sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, sending a shock of adrenaline through my veins. Every instinct in me screamed to flee, and suddenly, the uncertain bonds of camaraderie felt like wisps of smoke against the towering inferno of danger. "Let's go," I urged, glancing at each of my friends. "We can figure this out as we move. We can't let fear paralyze us, we need to act." The four of us moved together toward the door, Lily leading the way. I stole a glance back at Thomas, whose eyes reflected the bursting turmoil of emotions: fear, anger, sorrow. A desperate sort of resolve replacing some of that initial guardedness. As we stepped outside, the air was taut. I could feel the weight of impending confrontation, a simmering danger that lay just beneath the surface. The sun had dipped low on the horizon, casting elongated shadows that seemed to reach out toward us as we hurried down the narrow corridor. Just when I thought we had escaped the worst of it, I spotted a flash of movement from the corner of my eye, figures appearing from the shadows, lurking at the edge of our escape route. My heart seized in my chest, every instinct telling me we were no longer in control of our fate. "Run!" Lily shouted, drawing her arm around Thomas, pulling him close to her side. I grabbed Mary and Frank, urging them to move faster, to trust our instincts. The footsteps behind us thundered like a war drum, a relentless reminder that the danger was real and tangible, a storm chasing us down. As we fled, energy surged through my body, pushing us faster. I could hear the voices behind us echoing in the dim light, demanding to know where we were going and why, each word thick with menace that threatened to engulf us. Just when it felt like we might slip through the cracks of the chaos, I heard a familiar voice cut through the cacophony of fear: "It doesn't matter what you say, Thomas. We know what you've done." My blood ran cold, and time slowed. The voice echoed like a siren in my mind, awakening the creeping dread of recognition. I turned just enough to see a figure stepping into the light, and in that fleeting moment, the world pivoted on its axis. What did he do? My breath caught in my throat. What hidden truths were about to unearth? And in that instant, fear merged with something deeper, the undeniable thrill of discovery intertwined with impending doom, because I knew, at that moment, nothing would ever be the same again. The adrenaline buzzed in my veins as we sprinted through the dimly lit corridors, each step echoing uncertainty, until the unmistakable voice drew forth an icy chill. What did he do? The question clung to my lips, yet it felt as though the answer was already painting a painful portrait on the walls of my mind. Thomas' face morphed as the shadows deepened around us, his bravado shattered, leaving an exposed vulnerability. His eyes flickered with a combination of panic and something darker: regret. Shame. They don't understand, he stammered, the words barely escaping his lips before the chaos crescendoed. In that moment of turmoil, my heart ached for him. He was caught in a web far denser than any of us could have anticipated. "Thomas, please. Tell us what's going on." I urged him, hoping to pry open the truth before it was too late, before the hunters closed in. I didn't mean for it to lead to this," he finally confessed, his voice cracking. "We found something powerful, and I thought if we shared it, it could change everything. But it got out of hand." The footsteps behind us grew louder, punctuating his revelation. I turned to see the figure materializing into view, a grim visage with a piercing glare. "You think you can just walk away from this, Thomas?" The voice seethed with contempt, the words slicing through the tension like shards of glass. Before I could process the implication of his words, Lily grabbed Thomas and pulled him forward, urging him to keep moving. "We need to go," she shouted, but I felt the weight of her fear as tangibly as the cool rush of air against my skin. Mary and Frank were close behind, their expressions frantic. I felt the group's desperation giving life to a primal instinct. "Stick together!" I cried out, my heart pounding erratically. Each member of our small band was thrown into turmoil, yet somehow, we still held on to a thread of hope entwined with our fear. As we rounded a corner, I glimpsed a door ajar, a sliver of opportunity. "In there!" I yelled, not daring to look back. As we ducked inside, the small, dim room offered a mocking comfort. But moments later, reality nagged at my consciousness. The pounding of footsteps grew louder, emphasized by muffled voices outside seeking our very essence of freedom. "Is this what you meant by answers, Thomas?" I scolded, my heart knotted with frustration and confusion. "You knew the risks. You only thought about yourself." "Stop. "This is not the time," Lily interjected, her voice a soft flame amidst our gathering storm. "We need to strategize. If they find us, we'll be running for our lives without a plan." Inside the small space, furtive exchanges of glances conveyed our shared disquiet. But then I noticed an open window on the far wall, a possible escape route bathed in the dim light of the early evening. "Is there a way out this way?" I pointed, sensing the flicker of renewed hope. "There's always a way out," Frank murmured, his voice steadying as he moved toward the window. "But we'd have to climb down. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." As we turned to survey our surroundings, the pounding footsteps abruptly ceased. An eerie silence enveloped us, casting a shroud of foreboding uncertainty. "What do they know?" I whispered, straining to hear any hint of discovery outside the door. Lily pressed her ear against the wood, her face a mask of concentration. "They're debating trying to figure out how to flush us out." In that charged moment, Thomas took a hesitant step forward, his internal battle evident. "I messed up, but I never wanted this for us. We shared knowledge to empower our Sylvesto escape a life of shadow." I thought, the uncertainty pooled in his eyes, revealing an emotion I hadn't seen before: guilt. "What if I told you this could be our chance to turn things around? To expose the truth, or put our lives at risk even more?" I shot back, feeling the weight of his words pressing against the walls of our fate. Then, just like that, the door rattled. The sound of voices rose to a fever pitch, and my heart sank. The tension had become almost suffocating. A figure began to push against the frame, slowly gaining access. In that instance of fear, something shifted within us, an unspoken understanding that whatever lay beyond that door wouldn't allow us to leave unscathed. "We need to climb out now," I urged, urgency gripping me even as my throat constricted with dread. With quickened movements, we staggered toward the window, my heart racing with an amalgam of hope and trepidation. And just as Frank began to hoist himself over the sill, the door burst open. A flood of figures rushed into the room, their faces masked with intentions that promised only peril. "Don't you dare think you can escape," the leader growled, and at that moment, a chilling sense of destiny engulfed us. Caught in the startling brightness, the world outside melted away as everything spiraled into chaos just as the last of my sanity tethered itself to what we'd soon discover, a truth that had waited patiently to unravel, mingling with our fear like poison in our veins. "Remember," Thomas whispered, voice barely audible amidst the storm, "trust what brought us here and hope that a way out exists beyond this moment." But as we stood at the precipice of our entangled fates, one final shocking revelation brewed in the silence. Just then, from the depths of the shadows, a voice emerged, the very voice that had plagued us all along. "You think you're the only ones with secrets?" The horror and longing danced dangerously around us, leaving us tangled between fear and the looming specter of the past, its grip tightening as the discovery of our destinies came crashing mercilessly into view. We were trapped, like breath held in my throat, frozen in an unrelenting moment, the voice reverberating through our shared terror. "You think you're the only ones with secrets?" It was a taunt, steeped in darkness, a challenge sounding out above the chaos swirling around us. I turned to face the source and felt my heart drop into the abyss below. Standing at the entrance was not an unknown figure, but Megami Boss. The same woman who had doused Frank with milk and shattered his dignity in a moment of reckless abandon. Her demeanor was transformed, an intensity coiling around her like a snake about to strike. She wore the truth of her misdeeds like a shroud, but now, it was as if the veils of decorum had been ripped away, unveiling raw desperation and a hunger for control. "What do you mean?" Frank's voice cut through the tension as he stepped protectively in front of me, instinctively shielding the fragile bond we had formed in the wake of chaos. Whatever had been brewing in the shadows was now spilling over, and I could feel the fragile boundaries of our collective turmoil crumbling. "Each of you thinks you're so noble, fighting against the tides of your own entwined problems," Megan articulated, her words a chilling hiss. "But I know what's lurking beneath your surface is the truth of your collective darkness, and it spills far beyond a carton of milk. Why do you think I acted that way? Why do you think I'm in charge?" Her laughter was unsettling, echoing through the small room like a harbinger of doom. Each revelation etched into me like knife marks, carving deeper wounds. People began to shift uneasily, anger and fear colliding in the confines of our reality. "What are you saying?" I asked in a shaky voice, desperately grasping for clarity amidst the storm. "What truth?" Megan's gaze settled on Thomas, hard and gleaming. He was never just the janitor, he was my accomplice. A partner in this veil of secrets we've all spun. "You think that moment of humiliation was careless?" "It was intentional, a distraction from something greater. Something that strikes at the root of who we really are in this office, the fabric of our reality warped in ways we hadn't even begun to grasp." Thomas recoiled, anger and betrayal flickering across his features. "You're lying," he retorted, but doubt echoed in his voice. The echoes of our shared narrative wove through the air, laced with suffocating tension. "Am I?" Megan shot back, her voice rising with fury. "You all think you're the heroes in this tale of redemption, but you're tangled in the very web of deception we created. This camaraderie is built on lies. The unity you seek is a smokescreen, one that hides the true monster beneath your feet, shadows draped over every heartbeat that echoed in silence, growing heavier by the second." "This isn't who we are," I whispered, clutching desperately to whatever flimsy sense of hope I could muster. We were already climbing out of our darkness together. We were healing, but Megan's expression transformed, fury boiling beneath the surface. "You think healing comes without bloodshed? You've embroiled yourselves in a game you scarcely understand. Some truths are meant to stay buried, some trust should never have been fostered. What have you done?" Mary's once soft voice trembled, filled with anguish and disbelief. "What lengths did you go to hide this truth?" Megan's smile twisted, a blend of cruelty and satisfaction that sliced through the rest of us. "This office isn't just a job, it's a battlefield, and I will not allow you to forge your own narratives or break the status quo. You think there are only secrets behind closed doors. They lie everywhere you look, wrapped in the guise of familiarity." And now her voice dipped to a whisper, almost conspiratorial, "Now you're all complicit in the crimes I've committed." The weight of her intentions, layered thick with darkness, clung to us like a suffocating fog. I caught Frank's eye, and in that fleeting moment, clarity washed over me. "We will confront this," I declared, my voice steady even as my heart raced. "We will expose every secret, every lie. We will take back our narratives, together." But Megan's laughter bubbled back up, a raw and wicked sound that chilled my bones. "You think you can expose anything? There are always consequences, always a price to pay." The finality in her tone sent tremors through our journeys, raw and unsettling, simmering right on the edge. Suddenly, before we could react, peculiar noises began reverberating down the hallway beyond us, a rush of commotion, people pouring in. The scent of sweat and tension filled the air. "You've made your choice, but I hope you're prepared to face it," Megan hissed before she slipped backward into the shadows, leaving us to bear the weight of her final, ominous warning. Then my head swam with the enormity of everything. The pieces of this shattered puzzle began to slide into place, but it felt like moving through a fog. Retreating footsteps followed Megan, and my heart pounded feverishly. "We need to move," I urged, panic igniting once more, though Ma's expression remained unreadable, the remnants of disbelief battling with resolve. "They'll come for us for daring to stand up." "Maybe, but we have to confront it, whatever monster births from this," I breathed, refusing fear its hold. "We need to own our truths, to break the chains that have bound us individually." A beat of silence hung heavy, and then, resolutely, Frank stepped forward. "Well, face them. Together. No more running." Each one of us committed to this newfound purpose, hands clasping together as we prepared to meet our storm head-on. We gathered our resolve, our unity igniting a spark that had once dimmed, and as we pressed forward into the unknown, it began to dawn on me, that through this tumult, beneath the weight of our darkness, true connection had emerged. With every moment we faced, we would not simply unravel our ghosts, we would ignite the courage to embrace our truths. As we stepped beyond that room into the depths of uncertainty, fear began to morph into unyielding hope. Our united front, a shimmering ray of solidarity, surged upward like a beacon against the encroaching nightfall. Even in the chaos, I could feel a different kind of strength pooling within us. We were scared, yes, but we were ready, and as the promise of understanding drifted on the precipice of the unknown, I realized with bittersweet clarity that sometimes, in the heart of chaos, we must reach deep within ourselves and others to find the courage to light the way forward, because together, the bonds we formed amid the shadows could and would illuminate even the deepest darkness. In the end, we each carried the truth that while secrets and darkness might always lie in wait, it was love and understanding that brought us back to life, guiding us toward the light, transforming shadows into something powerful. And as we fought our way forward, every heartbeat echoed a singular truth: we weren't just breaking free, we were becoming whole. A path forged together from the ashes of our shared scars, leaving behind a legacy greater than the sum of its parts, a story waiting to unfold, one heartbeat at a time.